Amazon Spanners episode 1. In this episode we'll be looking at electronic ignitions and whether they're worth it or not. Sit back, relax and enjoy. Okay, so with electronic ignitions, let's take a step back and go mechanical ignitions just to understand where we're coming from. So in the early days of cars, most distributor systems or ignition systems used what was called condenser and point systems. Now, if you own a classic car, you will be familiar with this terminology. They worked fine, there was nothing wrong with them, except for it was a maintenance item. So generally when you service the car, you would service the ignition system as well, which meant new points and new condenser. The problem with ignition or mechanical ignition systems today is you struggle to find new condensers and you struggle to find new points, especially on the older cars. And if you're a classic car owner that doesn't use your car often, where your car is used basically on a Sunday drive type situation, then this won't be a big issue for you. You're not going to rack up the Ks on it, so it should be fine. The problem is if your car's a frequent runner or a daily runner, the points or the condenser itself is basically a capacitor. So just take a step back and just explain mechanical ignition systems. The condenser builds up a static electricity charge. Every time that the points open up, that charge is then sparked across the points. That goes into the coil itself. The coil is basically a transformer that takes a voltage coming from the condenser, a fairly low voltage in terms of static spark, and amplifies it up to a much higher level spark and then sends it into the spark plug through the distributor and rotor cables. Which is perfectly fine. Now, where the problem comes in with condensers and points distribution system, number one, the condenser itself loses its ability to store a high enough static charge. So over time, the spark gets less and less and less and less. Now remember that the coil takes takes the voltage it gets and it amplifies according to the windings inside the coil. It will amplify that signal. So if you send 1000 volts in, it will send out, for instance, 1000 volts out. If it gets 500 in, it will send 2000 volt out. So it drastically, the condition of the condenser drastically affects the performance of the coil. In line with that is every time that your points open up, you get what is called spark erosion that forms on the points. So eventually the points itself starts burning little pits in, and those little pits eventually causes it to miss a spark or not conduct the spark properly, or in worst case scenarios not spark at all, which leaves you stranded next to the road. So it was quite common for people to drive around with boxes and boxes and boxes of condensers and points in case I get stranded. In I'd say the mid 80s, early 90s, electronic ignitions became a more common thing. Now, electronic ignitions was a big thing on high-end cars in the early 70s. Jaguar with the V12 XJS was probably the best example of an electronic ignition system from the 70s that I can think of. But in the 80s and early 90s, electronic ignition became a more common thing in lower end vehicles, which is today the more popular of the classic cars to own. So for instance, your Triumph Spitfires, your Triumph TR7s, your Triumph TR6s and earlier, your MGs, your Rovers, those cars are becoming more and more desirable every day, and they have, most of them still had the mechanical type ignition systems, which was fine, But as of late, finding replacement ignition components for these cars have become difficult. And therein lies the problem. And where guys step in to get different, to get electronic ignition systems. The most common in South Africa, and it's probably the one I hate the most, is you had Ford and Mazda in South Africa working as the same company. So you had what was called SAMCOR, or South African Motor Corporation. Now, SAMCOR basically built the exact same cars and slapped different badging on it. So you would have a Ford Meteor, but you'd have a Mazda 323. It's exactly the same car for all intents and purposes. Sometimes there was motor differences, but the body and it was the same. And when it came to the ignitions on these cars, you had basically you had a big step forward away from the point systems, where you had a module. Normally it was called the TP9000, if I remember correctly, and the distributor itself didn't have points and condensers anymore. They had a magnetic pickup or a light pickup. So a light pickup is basically a sensor that emits a low level of light, and the trigger wheel on it looked like a little blade that sat on the middle of the distributor. So as the distributor turns, those blades would move in front of the sensor, blocking light, and that's how the ignition system triggered. Because it was on just about every SAM car in the late 80s, early 90s, these parts for these distributors became very easily sourceable from parts stores in the country, and a lot of people opted to do a modification using those. The majority of classic cars that I work on has some form of a TP900 ignition modification done to it already. And this is fine and it works, but to me it looks unneat. I'm actually working on a Spitfire at the moment that's got one. I'll do some B-roll on that, and I'll actually show the module and the ignition system itself. They look unneat. You can see it's modified, it looks modified, and I'm not a fan of it. It's just a personal preference. To me it doesn't look right. The more or the other option that I do see quite a lot of is the illumination electronic system. The problem with the illumination is they're not available locally, they are import, and they are extremely expensive to import. The cost of a unit itself, obviously you're buying in pounds, and then your shipping and handling fees and then taxes and duties makes it a very difficult system to afford. That brings me to a third one, and this is going to be a major product plug, and I apologize for that. It's not intended to be a product plug. I also just want to say that I'm not sponsored by the manufacturer. I am a reseller for this product because I believe in it, and it's my personal preference, and I will outline the reasons why it's my personal preference and why I decided to become a reseller for this product. But basically it's a South African made ignition system. They are a lot cheaper than the illumination systems, and the main reason why I like them is there's absolutely no modification to the cars. So this is the Mr. Carman electronic ignition unit. This one doesn't have a sticker on it. This is my test unit. I use it to diagnose and test cars. Sorry, my dog's just falling off my lap here. So the reason why I say I prefer these units, they are relatively easy to install, or just about anybody can install it. If you've got a little bit of mechanical knowledge, or if you maintain your own car, you will be able to install the unit. They are made in South Africa. The after sales care from the Mr. Carman team is brilliant, and it's a reliable product. My TR7 has been running on one now for 3-4 years. My TR7 is a daily driver, by the way. My Mark II Spitfire, that's got one on it. It resolved a hell of a lot of issues, which we'll get into in a bit. And I'm busy restoring the 1500 Project Spitty, which I'm also going to change over. It's currently got a illumination system, and I want to change it over to a Mr. Carman system. For the fact that I sell them, I want to be able to advertise the products I support. So the core question is, or the questions that I get asked a lot in regards to this is, firstly, is electronic ignitions worth it? Do you notice any differences? And then the biggest problem is misunderstanding, especially from the older generations that grew up with points, that doesn't know electronic ignition systems. There's a fear for electronic ignition systems, and I'll try and ease those issues. So the first question is, will you notice a difference? If you drive your car every day, and if you drive your car hard, yes, you will definitely notice a performance improvement. Will you notice a fuel improvement or fuel economy improvement? It depends. If your car's not a daily runner, if you use it on weekends, if you use it to go to the odd show and back, if you don't sit in traffic, you're probably not going to really notice a difference. If you do sit in traffic, if you do drive often, yes, you will notice a slight improvement on it. In my opinion, the biggest improvement that I've noticed with them is on cold starts, especially with the old, with the SU carburetor systems. An issue that's been parked up for a couple of days, or in winter mornings, an issue can be a difficult carb to start. But with the electronic ignitions, I've noticed a huge improvement in cold startability on the cars. Both the TR7 and the Spitfire is basically, if you look at the key wrong, it will start. So that's where I noticed the biggest difference. From a misunderstanding point of view, and I do understand where the older generation comes from, it's electronics, they're unreliable, all that type of stuff. No, they're not unreliable. They're more reliable than points and condensers. I've never had a electronic ignition, irrespective of make. I've never had one of the actual modules fail on me. Where I have seen failures is in either the magnetic or the light pickup that is used with the different types of ignitions. The pickup itself does fail. There I have seen failures. Would I recommend electronic ignition to a classic car owner? It depends. You've got two camps in that situation. You've got the purist who fully believes the car was built like that in the factory, it should work like that today, and I fully agree with that. Then you've got the guys like myself who knows that the cars are 40 plus years old, that knows that the car's going to be driving a lot. In my case, for instance, I do a lot of traffic driving and I do a lot of town driving, and I want to be able to give a 40-year-old car a chance at competing on the roads with modern day cars. Points fail at random. There's no slow indication that, hey, my points are going to start fail. They fail. They stop working. You sit next to the road, you stick a new condenser or points in, and off you go, or you sit and file the points down. That did not look good. You file the points down. That didn't really make things better, so let's just skip over that. Any case, so with electronic ignitions, you eliminate that. Personally, I would recommend the electronic ignition system to anybody. These units can be installed that it looks exactly like the original car's wiring. A concourse judge, for instance, wouldn't easily notice the difference unless they really, really look hard at it or for it. The module itself can be hidden away. We've done quite a few where the ignition module is hidden under dashboards and stuff, so you can't see it. So yes, they can be hidden away. You can tuck them aside if that is something that you want. So even for the purest guys out there, consider it. It's a worthwhile investment. And like I said, these units are not bank break expensive like importing the illumination units from the UK. The locally made units are just as good as the illuminations, except for one thing. And this is the biggest draw for me. With your other electronic ignition modules, you need to modify the trigger. So that would either be a magnetic pickup that you have to fit over the distributor shaft, or a plastic fan based with a light based one that you have to push over. So that then basically means I've actually got a distributor here on a client's car where you cannot get the magnetic trigger off. It's been pressed onto the shaft, so it's stuck there for life. I have to replace the distributor on that specific car. Basically, on a Mr. Carman electronic ignitions, you don't change anything. So how does it trigger? Well, it uses your points. Contradictory to what I said, but hear me out on this one. So with a high voltage static discharge, you get what I said earlier, you get the spark corrosion on the points. Now, if you eliminate the spark, the points turns into a normal switch, in which case there is no arcing and sparking, which means the points don't wear out, the points don't burn, the points don't carbon up. In other words, the points will keep working. So on the Mr. Carman electronic ignition units, you remove the condenser, so there's no more static spark going across the points. Basically what happens is the points turns into a small 12 volt switch. There's literally no arcing on it, and the points just sends a 12 volt signal back to the electronic ignition module, telling it that it needs a spark to go to the coil, and the ignition does everything for you. The way that it's wired into the car, you do not hack into any of the car's original wiring, you do not cut into the car's original wiring. It is completely self-sustained. It's got its own ground, so you do ground it somewhere in the car on the body, and it picks up its core voltage from the ignition circuit going into the coil. So you basically tap onto the coil through one of the lugs or the screw connector, whichever your coil has. The negative side of it goes on to the opposite side of a coil. Obviously it sends a low voltage signal through the negative side of a coil, or low voltage, a static discharge through the negative side of the coil, like your points would have done. And then you've got the lead that goes into the distributor itself to get the signal from the points. To swap it out or to take it out completely, you don't have to worry about having to fix up wiring or anything. It can be, we install it completely independently. In other words, it's not integrated into anything of a car. It basically has a plug-in system. Like I said, for me the biggest thing with why I decided to become a Mr. Carman reseller is because of the simplicity, the fact that you don't change the workings of the car or the ignition system, the fact that it is a fairly small form factor module, and it does look neat. It looks professional, it looks clean, it looks like it belongs in the car. Getting back to the benefits of it, have I noticed a difference? Yes, I have noticed a huge difference on all three, both my running cars, with and without the module. To give you a good example, Liam, who works with me, he bought a chicane about a year ago. Just for the UK viewers, a chicane is the Triumph Mark II 2000 or 2500. It's exactly the same car, except locally it was called the chicane and not the Mark II. So we had the Mark I, but it ended along with your production run on it. After that it went over to the chicane. Any case, so Liam bought the chicane, we went and fetched it in Kimberley, brought it back to Johannesburg. We tried to start over the next morning and couldn't really get any joy out of it. I used this exact module. Just to explain how simple it is to fit. On the test module, I've got normal crocodile clamps to hook it up to the car to do a test. So if I do an ignition test on a normal points distributor, I literally just hook these onto the coil, onto the ground terminal on the battery, and I hook it up to the distributor cable, and I disconnect the condenser. It's that simple. Anyway, so we hooked this unit up to Liam's car and touched the key, and the car ticked over and it ran beautifully. And I actually gave Liam a unit, an early birthday present, and I installed the unit on his car, and it's been running in the car flawlessly from that day onwards. I think I didn't even bother digging into it more and investigating more because the car started up and it worked. But I think in that case it was a perfect example of a condenser valve. So yes, I would recommend them. I think they're brilliant products. And for the guys from the UK or US that do like your British cars, because they work on British cars, they absolutely, it's as if Mr. Carman designed them for British cars. That's like jam and bread. I'm pretty sure for the American and the UK markets, I'm pretty sure Mr. Carman will export to you. I will leave their contact details in the description below, and you can have a chat to them and see if they'll be able to assist you. Or you can get into contact with myself. Like I said, I am a reseller for them. For the South African viewers, guys, please, if there's any questions around the modules, contact me. And I will try and answer as much of the questions. And it's starting to sound like I'm doing more of an advertisement than an actual technical episode. So I think I'm going to start calling it there. Like I said, I'm not sponsored by Mr. Carman. I'm a reseller for them, and I love their products. That's basically what it comes down to. I'm still finding my feet with these episodes, so leave your comments. Give us an idea of what you'd like to see in a video series like this. Was the content relevant? Did you find something that you found interesting? Please let us know so that we can build the content going forward and give you the information that you would like to see. Thank you for watching. Please remember to hit the like and subscribe and notification bell. That will let you know when we upload new content. I am trying really hard to upload content on at least 2 episodes of something on a weekly basis. So this will be the first episode. I know I said that it will probably be Tuesday or Wednesday night, so from next week it will be either on Tuesday or Wednesday nights, and then on Fridays and Mondays I want to do an episode of projects that we're working on for customers. So we'll keep going with that. But again, please leave your comments. Let us know if you like or what you'd like to see. And remember to subscribe, like, and click the notification bell. And until next week, thanks for watching. Bye.